Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Salas, and I will be presenting the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a one of a kind incident during the Cold War that boosted Kennedy's domestic and worldwide image. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the pinnacle of a particularly tense period in US Soviet relations. The crisis also represented the world's closest approach to global nuclear war in history. The political isolation that Cuba endured in the years and decades following the Cuban Missile Crisis was perhaps the most significant effect of the crisis. Following the event, Cuba's relations with the Soviet Union hit an all-time low with the Khrushchev government. However, the Cold War and the nuclear arms race were far from done. Indeed, the situation persuaded the Soviets to accelerate their investment in an intercontinental ballistic missile armament capable of reaching the United States from Soviet territory. The Cuban Missile Crisis started to develop in October 14, 1962. An American U-2 spy plane secretly photographed nuclear missile installations on the island of Cuba being built by the Soviet Union. President John F. Kennedy did not want the Soviet Union or Cuba to know that the missiles had been detected. For several days, he met in secret with his advisors to explore the situation. Tensions between the US and the Soviet Union over Cuba had been progressively rising since the failed Bay of Pigs assault in April 1961, in which US armed and trained Cuban refugees landed in Cuba and attempted to topple Fidel Castro's government. Despite the fact that the invasion failed, Castro was convinced that the US would try again and sought greater military help from the Soviet Union. The number of Soviet advisors in Cuba increased to almost 20,000 the following year. The roles of international leaders at the same time of the Cuban Missile Crisis were President John F. Kennedy, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, and Cuban leader Fidel Castro. Central planners have not been able to foresee national demands as well as a free market economy. Communist command economies lack development and drive compared to free market economies. Fidel Castro was one person who led a rebellion to political persecution. He was the catalyst for the Cuban Revolution and resistance against the US. Fidel Castro turned Cuban historical aspirations into a political mobilization tool, arguing that the only way to address the social, economic, and political sources of Cuban discontent was to achieve sovereign nationhood. Sovereignty not as an end but as a means to establish the primacy of Cuban interests as the primary goal of public policy. It allowed the U.S. to detect missile sites in Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The majority of the weapons were tactical nuclear weapons such as a 155mm and a 203mm artillery shells, Nike Hercules surface-to-air missiles, landmines, and short-range missiles.